Thank you.
Dad.
We ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
7:03, okay. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Knos,
Here.
Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Hammond,
Here.
Ms. McCready,
Here.
Mr. McQueen,
Here.
Mr. O'Day,
Here.
Ms. Zamara.
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on January 3rd, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, Christine has one. Okay.
Here you go, everybody.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
To
the flag
of the United
United
States of America,
and to
to
the
the republic
Republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
for all. Thank you, Christine. Oh, look at you. Okay.
Like that?
Yeah. First item on our agenda is a presentation from Comcast on our, this is for our consent renewal public hearing. So I will turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Yes, so good evening, Mayor, and thank you for setting this up, and I'm glad to be participating. I do have a short presentation that I would like to read into the record, and then I would answer any questions that the council may have or members of the public may have. And please forgive me, I have to turn away from the camera to read my presentation. So if I'm not looking directly at you, it's because I'm reading the presentation. We are in the final stages of the cable television franchise renewal process, which is governed by both federal and state statutes and regulations. Comcast began the renewal process on or about September 1st, 2017, by sending a letter to the borough indicating our intention to seek renewal of our non-exclusive franchise under Section 626A of the Cable Communications Policy Acts of 1984 and 1996. This was followed by an optional ascertainment period during which the borough had an opportunity to review our performance, assess community needs, and issue a report. The borough did not file a report. Following the state's timeline, Comcast filed an application for renewal of municipal consent on or about January 22nd, 2020. That application has been available for public inspection in the clerk's office. Tonight's hearing is on that application. No action of the council is required this evening. However, tonight's hearing is an opportunity to hear from both the governing body and the public. If your attorney has not yet told you, he will tell you that the governing body must base its franchise renewal decision on the answers to 4 questions. 1, has the cable operator substantially complied with the material terms of the existing franchise and applicable laws? 2, has the quality of the operator's service, including signal quality, response to consumer complaints, and billing practices, been reasonable in light of community needs? 3, does the operator have the financial, legal, and technical ability to provide the facilities and equipment it is proposing to provide? And 4, is the cable operator's franchise renewal proposal reasonable to meet the future cable-related needs and interests of the community, taking into account the cost of meeting such needs and interests? 2 areas the governing body may not consider in deciding whether or not to renew the franchise are rates. Rates are governed by state and federal statutes and are outside of the municipality's authority. Programming. The channel lineup is protected under the First Amendment, just as is the content of a newspaper. However, nothing precludes the public or the governing body from commenting on rates and programming. Such commentary cannot be factored into the municipality's decision to renew or not renew. That concludes my prepared remarks, and I would be happy to answer or respond to any questions.
Okay, do any council people have questions for Mr. Smith? Any questions from the council? Okay, then.
Renewing this license gives you what rights, and what would not renewing it result in?
Well, we have to have a franchise agreement to operate in the municipality. We have to have a franchise agreement to operate in every municipality that we operate in. Unlike Verizon, which has a statewide franchise and they can operate anywhere, Comcast has to obtain a franchise or municipal consent from the municipalities that we serve. In New Jersey, however, the state of New Jersey is the actual legal franchising authority. And the BPU approves the franchise and actually issues what is known as a certificate of approval, which actually legally grants us a franchise with the municipality. It is entirely possible, but highly unlikely, that if we cannot negotiate an agreement between us, Comcast would file directly with the BPU for the franchise. But in my 18 years with Comcast, that only happened once, and where we had to go to litigation to resolve the franchise.
Granting you the franchise does not give you any type of exclusivity to being a service provider in the borough, though, does it?
No, it does not. It is a non-exclusive franchise.
How long have you been a franchise in Bernardsville?
We took over the franchise from former Patriot Media,
Yeah.
which was a 15-year franchise. And that is the franchise that is ending now, and which we are seeking to renew. But the franchise started with Patriot Media.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, any other questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
No, the provisions that you said that you had to meet, which sound very much like complaints of service. We in the council would not know that. I would assume that the complaints go to Comcast. Is there any data on that? Has that been steady state or going up or negligible, or what can you tell us about that?
Sure. The BPU is the official complaint authority. So you can check with the BPU for any complaints that any customers may have registered with the BPU. But the BPU is the official complaint authority for the borough.
I can also add to that, when there are complaints, they come to the council.
Okay.
The first stop is the council.
So for the year that I've been on the council, a year plus, a few months, we haven't heard any, I don't believe.
I can't remember the last time we did.
It's been quite a while. Jack, at this point, because this is technically a public hearing, should we open it to the public for comment?
Yes, please, Mayor.
Okay, so if anyone in the public would like to comment on the Comcast renewal, go to the participant tab there, and at the very bottom, it says raise hand. So if you click on raise hand, then we will know to unmute you. Would anyone in the public like to comment on this franchise renewal? I am not seeing any hands go up, so I think we'll close the public hearing. What do you need us to do next?
The next steps would be for us to arrange to sit down and begin to negotiate the new franchise. And so whomever the borough would designate to do those negotiations, we would schedule a meeting and we would begin to discuss the terms of the new franchise.
Okay.
Now, I just would add that the current franchise expires on August 1st, 2020. It would be ideal to have a new franchise in place by then. but it is not required. There's really would be no penalty from the BPU. We can, as long as we are Comcast and the borough are engaged in negotiations, we can take our time to get through what we need to get through. So, but the current franchise does expire on August 1st, but it really doesn't have any meaning in terms of how services are executed, or, we will still live up to the provisions that are in the existing franchise until we get a new one.
Okay. Jack, who usually does the negotiations? Who did the last one? Do you know?
Yeah, they appointed a committee to negotiate, as I recall.
Okay, so we can put that together. And are you involved in that as well, I assume?
Yes. The committee, whomever you designate, certainly please reach out to me, and we can schedule how we want to move forward.
Okay, so we will get that organized. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, at this point, we will now have a general open session. So if anyone in the public would like to comment on anything going on in the borough, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And again, go to participants, and then at the bottom of the participant list, you can raise your hand, and then Anthony can unmute you. So if anyone in the public wants to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any.
I'm not either.
Okay, so we will close the public session. We do not have any ordinances to do tonight, but we do have a number of resolutions. 2112 through 2123, and then we actually have 3 more. I don't know if you want to discuss them now or add them on at the end for new business. I don't think, did everybody get a copy of them, Anthony? The last 3?
Yeah, I did send that to the whole council.
Okay, so then why don't we just make it one whole list here, and we'll do them whatever. 124, 125, and 126 were the new ones. 124 was the OEM Memorandum of Understanding. 125 was a part-time dispatcher, and 126 was the acting recreation director. So those were the 3 we added. Are there any on the list that anyone has questions on or want to take off the consent agenda?
I have a question on 123.
123, which is the Locust Drive cul-de-sac.
Yes,
You
and I'd
may
like
want to
to,
pull out 121 based on Mr. O'Day's email, at least to discuss.
Yes, we should pull that one off and talk about that separately. So
Yes.
let's take off 121.
talk about 117, 121, and 122, and 123.
I mean, you want to have the whole council discuss it, or you just want to comment on it?
Well, some may need to be discussed. I mean, I think there are some points to be raised on all of them that, I think were worthy of discussion.
Was that 17, 18, and?
No, 17, 21, 22, and 23.
Well, 21 we're taking off.
Well, I think we were just going to discuss it, is what Jack said.
Yeah, we're going to have a discussion on that separately. And
Okay, so
you know what? Let's break it down. Let's go 112 to 116. How about that?
Okay.
And then we'll work on the rest of them from there.
Yeah, for 116, I'd like to mention, say thank you to Robert, I guess it's Rogge, for volunteering to our all-volunteer fire department, and he's volunteering to be a member of that. So I'd just like to highlight a thank you to him.
Yep, agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been getting quite a number of volunteers. It seems like that's maybe the third or fourth since I've been here. So
Yeah.
that's great. So can we do, somebody move 2112 through 116?
I'll move them.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready.
I have a question quickly on 114. Sorry, I wasn't able to jump in.
Oh.
But the 114, the tree planting one, this is not coming out of the municipal budget, correct? It's coming out of the shade
Correct.
tree fund?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay. And on 116, I know that we have approved a couple of these types of resolutions as far as trucks being able to stay across the street from the municipal building. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any conflicts, or if these are ones that we've talked about previously that are just coming up for resolution now.
Anybody? I think we have these, Ralph, maybe you can unmute. I think these are timed, right? We had a couple of different ones coming in, but somebody's keeping track of which ones are there when.
Yeah, right. John McDowell is keeping track of that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So sorry. Now I will vote yes. Thank you.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, on 117, I think we don't need to vote on that because it actually has happened. They will be opening a drive-through testing site at Raritan Valley College with Hunter. It'll be a joint Hunter in Somerset. Right now it's opening for Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And then they'll give dates from that point on, depending on what the what they have in the number of kits, testing kits, and PPE. Anybody that wants to be tested has to make an appointment and has to have a doctor's prescription to use that site. So when we first put this on, we were getting very slow feedback from the state and getting the site open, but now it will open on Thursday. So we really, I don't think we need to do this at this point. Because it's
So the resolution isn't about us being supportive of the idea. The resolution was us asking the state to do it.
It was, yeah, we recommend that they do whatever needs to be done to get it open.
Okay, so it definitely is open. I heard you say
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
It'll be open. It's definitely Thursday, Friday, and Monday so far. I think it's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., something like that. But you do have to make an appointment and you do have to have a doctor's note. So we can take that one off. I don't.
Well, actually, that was I'd like to consider it a different way. It's a moot point. I was going to mention that because the site's already open. But as you mentioned, it's only open 3 days, and I believe it's only 3 hours of those 3 days. So should we perhaps consider a resolution that urges them to, and I realize it's all dependent upon them getting the kits, but I really think that 3 hours for 3 days is inadequate for our needs.
I think it's 9 to 1. I think it's 4 hours. Yeah.
Okay, 4 hours over 3 days is inadequate for our needs. So should we consider a resolution if we want to have a sense of the council that that we urge them to expand the service?
I don't have the wording in front of me. Do you have? Yeah.
I mean, Jeff, if the purpose was to be symbolic in nature, because really that's what it is, right? This is going to be driven by the governor in many ways. Do we add antibody testing to that list of what we recommend?
That's a good point. And actually, I'm not entirely sure it's up to the governor. I think it may be up to the freeholders. I'm not sure how this got driven. I think this got driven in a collaborative way between the freeholders and a couple of the congressmen that represent our district. But the point was, it was, you're right, it's symbolic. But I wouldn't want somebody to think that because Somerset and Hunterdon County got thrown a bone for a drive-by testing facility that's only open less than part-time, in my opinion, that's going to be sufficient.
I certainly think, some wording to the extent that, if demand exceeds the supply, that we, encourage them to increase the the quantity and the hours. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah, so would that go in section 1 then? Support of a mobile testing facility.
Which meets the needs of the community or
Yeah.
something like that, you know?
Yeah, I would put it there. I agree.
With, you know, hours and capacity that meets the needs of the community.
Yeah.
Jack, do you have it up? Can you
I do.
edit it to?
You know, maybe at this point in time, you just pass a motion authorizing the mayor or somebody to write to them saying it's the wish of the council that it be open for more hours because these hours are inadequate.
Yeah, I mean, it probably has something to do with the number of tests they have too, right? I think they were, you know, not having that many. So even if it's open from 9 to 1, they could run out of tests at 11
Right.
or.
That's been the experience in Morris County, for example. But I think, I mean, we are grossly under testing in the state, in the country, but especially in the state. I wouldn't want anybody at the higher reaches of government to feel like they're sitting on their laurels on this.
Yes.
So what did you suggest, Jack? That the council authorized me to write a letter to that effect?
Yes, to the governor, the legislature, and members of Congress.
On behalf of the council, saying that council supports it, rather than trying to rewrite this resolution right now on the spot.
Yeah, I think trying to rewrite it on the fly, I think it'll have the same result.
Okay.
But I think, you know, to Councilman Queen's point, you know, including the antibody testing as, you know, as a desirable outcome. And I think, you know, saying expanding the hours to meet whatever the demand is something that we should mention as well. You know, if it's true that, you know, the 3 hours a day is sufficient, then I don't know that we need to expand it. It just seems impractical. It seems unlikely that would be enough. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom.
Okay. So do you want us to do a resolution saying I should write a letter?
Yes, motion directing the mayor to write a letter to those government officials asking for expanded hours and the additional testing.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Okay, 2118, extending the grace period for sewer fees. Discussion? Everybody okay with that one?
I am.
We're extending it 90 days, yes? Okay, roll call. Oh, we need a motion.
Motion.
Sorry. Motion.
I'll move.
I'll
Second.
Second.
Okay, now a roll call.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2119 is approving the installation of 7 new fire hydrants. I believe we had maps with the locations of each of those. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, my only question, because I know that at a previous meeting, I believe it was 2 council meetings ago, we discussed that there was a fee associated with this, and I don't see any budgetary items attached to this. So did we already approve the additional fee?
The fee is not, there's no fee to install them, right? I think the water company provides them. We pay the usage if we use it. Is that what, I forget what they explained it and I forgot what Glenn said. Anybody remember what Glenn said?
I think that's right.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to approve it either way. I just wanted to make sure this was complete. If we had to allocate budget for this.
Yeah, I thought that Glenn Miller said that they were a couple $100, $400 or something dollars each or
Yes,
something like that.
that's my recollection as well.
So maybe the finance committee can just make sure.
Yeah, we'll have to double check. I don't know off the top of my head. I see Leslie Roberson's on. I don't know if she knows, or Ralph. Was there a line item in our budget that takes account of the fact that we have 7 new fire hydrants? Is that material?
For this, I don't recall that, Tom. I don't know. Leslie, do you recall that?
I can unmute her.
You have to unmute her, yeah.
Did she hear the question?
I'm hitting unmute and it's there. She's unmuted now.
She's good. She's unmuted. Leslie, did you have any information on the fire hydrants?
I believe Tina checked it out and it was a couple $100 per hydrant.
Yeah. For some reason, $700 is sticking in my mind, but I could be wrong. That's what I'm recollecting.
Yeah, I remember Glenn did make a presentation on
Yeah.
it.
What I don't want to do is, pass this, is I think he's got, what, 7 of these?
Yes.
And have it come back again and be delayed for $5,000?
Not even.
So, I mean, can we put in this someplace that, an expense up to some number to make sure that it gets done?
If it's a couple of $100, we're talking $1,500
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we could, right, Tom? You okay with that?
I think we can contain it. I don't know. Do we need the wording in the resolution? I guess is the question.
Yeah, that's I'm asking open-ended.
Yeah,
That's
not,
exactly
not
right.
to exceed, an amount not to exceed whatever number.
Fine, maybe not to exceed 2,000 or something like that.
I
They
remember
were somewhere
$700.
between, they were somewhere between 4 and 7. So it's going to be somewhere $2,000 to $5,000.
So let's
So why don't
put
we
nothing
make it
to exceed
$5,000?
$5,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Is everybody good with that? Do we have a motion on this?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
He's
You're on
muted.
mute, Jeff.
he's on mute.
You're on mute.
I'll unmute him.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, 2120. Tom, why don't you explain this from the finance committee?
Yeah. So the finance committee met earlier this week, or I guess it was last week now, and we were discussing, what the impacts on the budget might be, revenue, potential revenue losses, and potential expenses that might occur due to COVID-19. And we looked for areas of flexibility. So one of the things that we came up with, and we had to make a decision because the bond anticipation notes was the bond council was writing stuff up. We had to make a decision, yes or no, on this concept. And this concept was to delay a portion of the road referendum. If the council can recall, we approved 900,000 this year, but there had been approval for 900,000 as well last year, for a total of 1.8 million, all part of the original 10 million voter approved road referendum. So the concept was to do half of it this year and to delay the other half till next year. So this would give us the potential for some additional flexibility this year, should we need money to cover COVID expenses or revenue shortfalls that occur because of COVID-19. The only way to have that flexibility, though, is to actually cancel the bond ordinance that we approved, I think it was either 2 or 4 weeks ago, for half of the road referendum. So the 900,000 that was approved in 2019, that's also being drawn down in this most recent ban that's going to be offered coming up here in April. That would continue, that half would continue, and this 900, or I think it's 916,000 portion would be delayed for 1 more year.
Thank you, Tom. That was the finance committee's recommendation. Does anybody want to comment on that?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So we would look to probably do this in 2021, but for tonight, we're basically just taking it off the list of 2020 stuff.
So, sorry, what does it actually do and help us from a budget perspective in 2020? It allows us to bond for the 916,000 for something else.
So what we would be doing is we would not be borrowing 916,000 this year. So there'd be the avoidance of not borrowing that money. And then we have to put down a 5% deposit. So there's about $45,000 worth of cash that we would not spend this year. Now, we probably wouldn't take it out of the budget, right? But it would be there in the budget. We would still have the money. And if we had to use it to cover a COVID-19 expense or a revenue shortfall, we would have that much flexibility to cover it then. And assuming we don't have the revenue shortfall, then the $45,000 would be available next year for the down payment for this road work.
And what doesn't get done are the 3 roads.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're not getting done. They're just not getting done this year. They'd be getting done next year.
Right, yeah, I mean,
And which 3 are?
it was
Which 3 are
Picklebrook, Crestview, and Chestnut, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly.
That sounds correct, I think.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if the, 45,000, if it makes that much of a difference. I don't know. Because I know
Well,
those roads are pretty bad.
They are, but you're also adding to the debt, which means the tax payment for the debt would be more if we left that in. Yes?
For 2021, Mayor, the first debt payment wouldn't, the first interest payment wouldn't be until 2021.
So I'm not opposed to the idea, Tom, but I just have a question. Is since interest rates are so low, is it to our advantage to take advantage of that now as opposed to risk that they go higher in 2021 when we revisit this?
Well, that's a possibility. We don't know. The feeling we asked our bond counsel, the feeling was that if we had this monies included versus if we didn't include this money, it would not make a material difference to the rate we would receive this year. Now, whether or not the rates will be better next year, that's an unknown that, it's hard to predict. But I would like to say one other thing, which is that the Finance Committee had to make a decision because the paperwork was going to the bond council to be prepared and submitted last week. So while this is an action that's being taken, because this is the next council meeting subsequent to our finance meeting, we had to make this decision. So we're sort of committed to this path right now, unless we want to pull the plug and redo all the bond anticipation work that we paid for already, which I would propose we not do.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion because I don't want to put that, but the Finance Committee was in agreement, unanimous agreement that we should take this approach. It was a decision that we had to make, and the timing is what caused it to go in the order that it's been in. Normally, we wouldn't do it in this order. Normally, we would have this resolution in front of the full council first, but because the timing didn't allow in this circumstance, we did it kind of back to front.
Yeah, and Tom,
Wait, I think Ralph wanted to add something.
I just wanted to make it even more clear that the bond sale is tomorrow morning at 11 p.m.
Yeah, so we can't really undo it at this point. So I'm sorry, I apologize to the rest of the council members that we had to do it this way, but we really didn't have a choice. And, we debated the pros and cons of it. And I understand the concerns that are being brought up here. But the Finance Committee felt that this was the right way to go, given the unique circumstances that we're in this year.
And if I remember correctly, so this does not preclude us. Let's just say that there's a miracle and this virus is heat sensitive and we're back 100% business as normal June 1st, right? I mean, obviously I'm speculating. The only thing that would preclude us from going forward with that bond note was a $5,000 or $6,000 incremental fee.
That's right. We'd have to go to a second bond offering. And, of course, if we're only going with 916,000, we may not get as favorable a rate as if we rolled it in with everything else, which was originally why we went down the path of bundling everything together. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't preclude us completely from doing it later in the year if we absolutely wanted to.
And I think that's one of the backdrops of our decision is because we don't know what's going to happen. I think we can reasonably anticipate at least fee shortfalls because we're pretty much at a standstill right now. And this gives us a little bit of cushion, a little bit of hedge against the unknown, which, we could navigate these, just completely without any kind of guidance.
So and I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm trying to understand it that much better. And the ramification and sort of following up on Gina's question, this gives us flexibility, as you said, but it sounds like it has no material effect on what eventually we'll end up doing in terms of taxes, whether we keep them flat or raise them or whatever.
It may not have an impact on that, but what I would say is that last council meeting, we approved the snow removal fund, which is around $80,000 to be available for emergency purposes. Right. So this would be more than a 50% increase in that amount. if you add the 45,000 to the 80,000 that's already available. So it would, I think, make a material difference in terms of what kind of flexibility we have. Although I don't think it would make a material difference, Jeff, as you talk about the amount to be raised by taxes, for example.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, sorry, did Doug weigh in at all or no from the condition of the roads and the increased costs that would incurred next year versus this year?
Ralph, we did ask for Doug's input, didn't we?
We did, but we did not get in contact with Doug before we had a meeting. Leslie, I think we discussed this with bond counsel the very next day. Is that correct? I don't know, is she muted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Bottom line, we did not get a chance to speak to him before we had to give the okay to bond counsel.
Okay.
Go ahead with the choice that the finance committee made.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do we have a motion for 2120?
I move that we pass resolution 2120.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready.
She's muted.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry. Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Abstain.
So I'd just like to add that during the finance committee discussion, we also took away as an action. We directed our staff to gather on a department by department basis a list of all items that could be postponed, spending that could be put on pause, and a list of spending that was for essential services that could not be delayed, so that we'd have a list of both things that we could consider postponing and a list of things that cannot be postponed without impacting essential services. So the staff is gathering that list on a department by department basis, and we're going to review that in our next finance meeting as well. So we're looking across the board at all possibilities to try and maximize our flexibility and also try and anticipate in advance, all the spending that's going to be necessary, as well as any flexibility that we might be able to ascertain.
Thank you, Tom. 2121 is granting a rent holiday to Summit Medical Group. And if you checked your email, Leslie had sent us an email saying that would cost us about $25,000 because they pay a little, they pay a little over 8 something a month. So that's what would be the loss of revenue for us by granting that.
And one question I have is this when you call it a rent holiday, does it literally mean a break and they're going to pay it on the end? Or does it mean that we never get paid?
No,
We're not going to pay it on the
end.
end. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Oh, go
We're
ahead.
not going to pay it on the end, but according to Doug's email, they would extend the lease for an additional 3 months at the end. So there would be a loss of 3 months.
Oh, right. Okay.
We wouldn't get the money ever. It's essentially just.
I'm sure they're under cash flow pressure, and I'm sympathetic to that. But everybody has to pay their bills. Still, eventually, we could give them a grace period. I'm not opposed to giving them a grace period, but I think at some point they still have to pay it.
I think that makes sense. I mean, that's what we've done basically by extending the grace period for the sewer fees.
And there is a lot of legislation coming down the pike to provide different kinds of rent relief for businesses. So it may be premature to be doing this because I know I think Assembly and Senate were meeting today. And there's a whole list of legislation for renters.
Yeah,
So
I think we should follow. Yeah, I think we should follow that guidance because everybody's still living in their homes. We're all still having to pay mortgage, at least for now. I think even there's no, it's all deferment either on the end of the loan or at the 4th month, you've got to pay the 3 months past as well. So.
Yeah, I would be opposed to essentially eradicating the rent for 3 months. We don't even know how long this crisis is going to last. 3 months, maybe shorter, maybe longer. In fact, we don't even know whether it's going to recur come the winter months. So I don't want to set a precedent that this will become a routine if this virus recurs until we get a vaccine. So I think this is worded poorly.
Why don't,
Yeah, I would agree.
why don't we just pull it? Because no action is needed to maintain the status quo.
Okay.
Do we
I
have
think,
to?
you know, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Councilman Day.
I think, you know, we could respond to them by saying that, you know, we would consider flexibility, you know, in terms of the timing of their payments, but not just pass this as it's written. So I don't know if a communication is in order, Mayor, where we don't just leave them hanging by saying tough luck, it's just back to square one. We say we want to help you out, we want to explore options. You know, if you have an immediate cash flow concern that we can help you with by deferring some of your payments to later in the year, we'd be open to that, or something along those lines as a response. So we're not just shutting the door on them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, something similar, and, you know, eliminating late fees for, you know, rent. And again, I mean, same guidance a lot of the mortgage companies are giving, right? You know, canceling late fees, allowing them just, you know, guidance is to pay as much as you can, kind of thing. And then we'll figure out, once the actual laws and things come down from federal and state, that will determine what we do at a local level.
Agree.
We all agreed on that, that we'll communicate that to them.
I think that's a good idea.
Yes, I agree.
Is
Let's
that
pull
okay,
that-
Jack, or do we need
Yes,
anything
yes. In
official?
fact, I'll contact Doug and let him know, since he's the one communicating with him.
Okay.
Okay.
2122, and I'm assuming this was based on the correspondence from the there they call it, it's not the Basking Ridge, what do they call it? The Chamber.
Bernard Township.
Yeah, Bernard Township.
Chamber of Commerce.
The Regional Chamber of Commerce, yes. They're asking to allow temporary open signs during the COVID-19 emergency so that people are aware of which businesses are open, that they could put sandwich boards out, you know, as long as they're not blocking a sidewalk, and do a little bit more promotion than is normally allowed in our sign ordinance.
Well, and that's why I would personally add a little language to this, Mayor. So after place temporary open signs, including I would like to add, including appropriate language on ordering or other relevant business related information in front of their business. So just add an additional statement that says it can contain additional information beyond just that we're open.
Additional information such as hours and
hours, ordering, how to order, maybe, you know, website information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I would like to note that the chamber also asked that we waive fees, but I have no idea what kind of fees they're talking about. And I'm not aware of any fees, ongoing fees we have.
Maybe can we ask Jeff? Can we unmute Jeff and just ask him?
I muted him.
Yeah, hi. You know, we went past the Monterey Gourmet last week, and he had both of his trucks parked in the right of way with signs saying, you know, where you can get your pickup and order online. So he took signage to a higher level and put them on his trucks. So I don't know whether you want to add some language about the types of signs,
yeah,
or whether I'm just being too awkward about this.
I think
it's got to follow guidelines for safety. In other words, they can't be blocking anything that impairs, you know, people's safe travel.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail because this is not a zoning ordinance. You know, it's a temporary relief. So I think it's a judgment call. And as the mayor said, it's really safety and interfering with traffic and things like that.
Can we just say that, you know, that they generally allow whatever's necessary for them, and that, you know, but within the guidance provided by the appropriate department in town? In other words, just put a little caveat and say that Jeff makes the final decision on whether or not that was necessary and appropriate.
So as we're working through the new signed ordinance in the planning committee, we're doing that more often. So we could just add a simple sentence at the end, and I don't have the new language from the planning board in front of me. It just says, you know, and something to like you're saying, Tom, that
The final judgment will be with the department. Jeff, what's the name of your department?
We'll try the zoning office.
Zoning office. The final decision by the appropriateness of any signage will be with the zoning office.
And if we can add a prelude to that, it should say while permits are not required, then what Tom just said.
And we say for the duration that we're in an emergency order in the state or something.
Correct.
Yeah, I think it already says that during.
Well, actually, it says it. Actually, that was one of the points I wanted to bring up. It says it would be there until the Governor Murphy allows all businesses to reopen. That's. I'm not quite sure that language
is correct.
Is correct. I think it may be. We should say until the state of emergency is lifted, because they may lift the state of emergency, but some businesses still remain closed. If we're held to the standard that all have to be open, that could be problematic.
Signs can be around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, should we change number 2 to say shall be removed immediately as directed by the council? I mean, is this going to be a local decision?
I was just going to suggest that because it's so open-ended.
Okay.
Chad, I'd be careful about leaving it up to the discretion of the zoning officer in the ordinance. I've got no issue with it in this because it's a stopgap measure during an emergency.
Okay.
Just
But in the new ordinance, Jack, you're saying it should be to the discretion of the council?
No, you can't even do that. I mean, an ordinance has to be specific as to what's allowed.
No, it does. So I'm talking specifically about what signs are requiring approval at the planning board and what signs can be approved by the zoning officer. So.
That's fine. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have the new wording for this?
Jack, are you?
Something to Anthony in the morning.
Okay.
You're gonna work it out?
Yes.
I think I got the gist of it all.
Okay, so we can pass the resolution now then?
Yeah.
As amended.
Based on the concept here, what we agreed to. So would someone move 2122?
I'll move 2122.
As amended.
As amended.
Yeah.
Second.
Wait, aren't we pulling 21?
It's
122.
22.
122.
So okay.
That's the signs.
Okay, so we're only voting on 122 right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Roday,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Okay, 2123 is allowing permission for CRJ Contracting to use the Locust Drive cul-de-sac while they're working on the water main project. And I know we've had some complaints from the neighbors on that. So, and there were some correspondence from John McDowell, I believe, and Doug on alternate spots. So I don't know if anyone wants to discuss this further. Jeff, I think you got some of the.
Yeah, the original correspondence from one of the residents came to me and sent a bunch of pictures as well. I think there are alternatives for them to store their equipment, and this is going to carry on for several months. And they wanted that as a staging area, not just for the work on Locust, but for other areas. I think that's a unreasonable burden on the residents, and they should use their property that they have already. It may mean a little bit extra travel time for them, but that's just something they have to bear.
I agree.
I'm okay with that. If residents don't like it, I don't want to do it.
Christine?
The most current email is from about 8 hours ago from John, and it says that he talked to American Water Company contractor yesterday, and they moved everything out of the cul-de-sac and onto the New Jersey American Water property, which is at the intersection of Oak Ridge and Locust. So as you're going up into that neighborhood, there's a area of land where the pump station is supposed to be being built. Anyway, so they moved everything there.
Oh, right, and I saw that letter, and that's great. But the thing is, are they intending to do that just as a temporary fixed because there were complaints, I think we need to codify that in as that's their approach for the months that they're going to be working. That's what they need to do.
Well, and I think what happened was they put their equipment there before they asked for permission. And so this is kind of an after the fact asking for permission. And I don't think that's what we want to do at this point.
But we just don't pass this resolution then.
Right.
That's correct.
No, we're not. We don't want to let them put the stuff at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Are we agreed with that? Anybody?
Yes.
We're good? So we will take that one off too and not act on it.
Do we need to have a official communication of some type that goes back to New Jersey Water in this regard, though?
I think we can direct John McDowell as to our decision. So because he communicates with them. Yes?
Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, he's shaking his head. Okay.
Sorry, I'm
Do we need to leave it on?
No, we're taking it off. We're not
Just
acting.
take it off. We don't have to vote negative on it.
No.
Well, if there's no motion and then it dies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, now we have resolution 2124, which is authorizing the execution of a NJOEM memorandum of understanding that we got from the chief today, I think it was, or yesterday. So, and I guess we do this every year, don't we? Have to renew the memorandum?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
No,
No?
no, it's a standing document that,
Oh, there's Kevin.
yeah, that periodically has to be updated. The last time we entered into this agreement with the state and as a conduit to FEMA was when Mayor Honaker was the mayor. So his signatures were on it in preparation of the upcoming grant funding we expect through FEMA for the emergency declaration. We're renewing it. It's really just housekeeping. We're not really changing anything. We're just updating the current MOU.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Any questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2125 is appointing James Stillman as a part-time substitute dispatcher on the recommendation of Lieutenant John Gardner. Discussion?
Is there any particular duration for this assignment? Or it's case by case as long as we need it?
He's an hourly part-time employee. He's not a permanent employee of the department. They're just paid hourly as they go along. So, that's once he's appointed, he's there, and every year you do your salary ordinance. So we don't normally renew our part-time employees. They just roll over. And if we don't need them anymore, we can take them off. Is that correct, Jack?
Right, and he only works when you call him in.
Yeah, he's part-time. He's a
He's got
part-time
no
substitute.
guaranteed income.
Yeah, he's a part-time substitute hourly employee.
Okay.
Motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Okay, we have resolution 2126 appointing Neil Mastrobrono as acting recreation director. I believe the personnel committee discussed this. Chad, do you have any input on that?
Yeah, we're going to actually discuss, hiring this position later. Seeing this and knowing the progress that we've made, I would frankly be in more favor at this point of providing if it's possible, a spot bonus just to cover the financial difference between now and what we hope to have the right person. It very, very well may be Neil in place within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So at this point, I would actually recommend to see if we can just make up the financial difference versus just appointing a new recreation director that's acting.
How does it differ? How does that differ, Chad, from what we're doing or what the resolution says?
So I would, by making the statement that we're appointing an acting recreation director with a new acting salary, in my opinion, it locks in a hand and a decision whether we're going to go that direction or not. Now, again, I'm not making any statement as to whether or not Neil's going to be the next person. I think that's yet to be determined. So if he's going to be in that position for a period of, let's say that Cheryl was out the 31st for 1 month, I'd rather just provide a spot bonus versus going through the discussion at this point of what the salary should be and what a new title should be.
Well, from an administrative point of view, do we need to have, Ralph, this is really for you.
Yeah.
Does whoever sits in that seat as the acting director need to be called an acting director in order to get things done, in order to sign whatever contracts or whatever needs to make any decisions that have to be made? Because essentially, Chad, and he's the last man standing there. He's the acting director, whether we call him that or not.
Exactly.
I concur with that. But I mean, if the title, as you say, is there whether you approve this or not, because he is the last man standing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so is it customary to give raises for ad interim positions like that?
Well, it's called higher grade pay, basically, as he's acting in the director's position at this point in time, or until further, until not a permanent, a new director is selected.
Yeah.
Whether it's him or anyone else.
Well, to your point, Chad, I don't think it locks us into doing anything if we call him that. But I do think that if we have no idea how long it's going to take us to recruit. We haven't even started the interview process yet. I think if he's going to act in the capacity of the acting director, we should call him that. And
okay,
if he gets the position, that's great. And if he doesn't get the position, that happens in the past as well. People revert back to their prior position.
Correct.
All right, no, I'm fine with it.
Anyone else have comment? What is Neil's current salary, if I can ask?
I believe, Anthony, help me out. I believe it's like 44,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And this could be, I mean, also, Chad, to your point, even if we begin interviews next week and pick a candidate, you still, I mean, they may have to give 60 days notice wherever they are. So this could be a couple of months, and they're going to be very critical months because we have decisions to make about when and if we open the pool and what needs to get done and the parade, and there's a lot of things for our acting director to deal with on his own.
And for me, as I'm looking at this, because obviously this just came over very shortly before the meeting. I mean, in my mind, it does a couple of things. Number one, it pre-negotiates what his salary would be as recreation director. And we haven't even gotten to that discussion of what that number should be. Yeah, and that's my challenge in this. It's not number one, predicting the future, but number two, it's pre-negotiating something that we haven't even thought through.
I don't think it does.
No. Okay.
No. Because the situations change, and we're slaves to the economy in many respects. So whoever sat in that chair previously, whatever they made, it doesn't hold that the next person will get the same thing.
Sorry, I lost my whole Zoom for a few minutes. So I missed when Mayor Canosa started to speak, but I don't necessarily agree with, Chad, I think I agree with what you're saying as far as the number goes. Like, how did we determine that? And maybe I missed it when I was off of Zoom, but
yeah, I don't think this number's been thought through.
Interim increase, even an increase at interim for me is very just seems strange. That's why I asked if it was customary in the public sector to do that. I haven't heard of it in the private sector, but and then how the number was determined, I guess I would like to understand.
Yeah, I have those same questions, Gina.
Ralph, can you explain? I mean, because it's a very specific number. So,
Well, first of all, I'm seeing at the time when we first brought this up, I'm seeing that we won't probably get someone in that position, whoever it might be, going back to the end of March, April, at least to May, possibly into June, depending upon how a lot of things that are beyond our control go. And your point, Mayor, to being finding someone who has to give sufficient amount of notice to their own municipality or organization, whatever it may be, certainly comes into play. And if it is Neil's, that doesn't come into play, then a salary can be negotiated based on what the governing body is willing to pay for his services as full-time director.
Yeah.
You know, the number itself, I was using like 3,000 a month and possibly going to 3 months, getting it to 9, and it might not be that long. And of course, it's you could break it down to an hourly rate.
Well, so that just helped, because so knowing the math that you just did, Ralph, I wouldn't. I personally, now mind you, I'm speaking from a public sector voice, not a private sector, not a public sector. I wouldn't recast this as Neil's annual salary being $54,571. If we think it's fair to pay Neil $3,000 a month for his additional services until we're able to fill the position, I would structure it that way.
as a stipend. You're saying
As a
more
stipend. Yeah.
It's not 3,000 a month though. Let's just be careful. That doesn't sound right to me. 3,000 a month.
Well, this is about a $10,000 increase.
Yeah.
Right, but that's not 3,000 a month.
Well, so Tom, it sounded like Ralph did the math by saying he was thinking of 3 extra months at because initially when you divide by 12, it's less than $2,000, right?
Right, but I was using, you're correct that number is a little bit higher than if you divide it by 12, but technically he has no help. Technically, I mean, I will assure that he gets help. I've already told him that I will be helping him myself, but he is a department of 2 is now 1.
Yep.
And we have no assistant for him per se. So he, in my opinion, is going to be doing more work in this interim period than when we go back to, if the council agrees to go back to a 2-person organization, there'll be, 50% more help to him that he doesn't have now moving forward.
So I guess what I'm saying, I would structure this differently. Let's structure it as a stipend that can be paid either on a whole month or on a partial month until the position's filled. And that's create a fair and equitable, because I don't think, I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay him extra for the work he's doing, because it's obviously he's there by himself.
Well, yeah, but Chad, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, right now there is no work, right? I mean, the camps aren't registering, the pool isn't registering, there's nothing moving. So
that is you're correct, Gina, to a point. There are things that need to be put into place specifically for the pool, actually, to be prepared to get to an opening stage much quicker than we might if we don't, and we're being very careful what we do and don't do. There are some things that would have been done already if we were opening up in the end of May, but they're not being done yet. Just trying to, again, follow where this thing is going. Are we going to be open, or is this going to be lifted in May at some point in time? And then are we going to try and open, as quickly as we can, or set a date further down the road to open? But there'll be a rush. The assumption is that there'll be a rush for the contractors to clean other pools, and we've got tile work that needs to be done to get these people in. There's lead times involved with that. So it's a real juggling act for something that most of it is unknown.
So Ralph, if this ordinance passes, and I'm speaking very down the resolution. I imagine that the way this would proceed was Leslie would change his annual salary in ADP. And I just did some simple math. 12 divided by 10 grand is $833 a month. Was that your intent of how different he would be compensated for his interim work?
Yes, basically, yes.
But Chad, then your math then assumes that the interim work goes until the end of the year. What happens when the interim work
the stipend
stops
would
and it
only
goes back?
No, the stipend would only be paid for the months that he's doing the position.
Yes.
Right, that's
Right,
correct.
so that's what I'm saying. So it won't end up being $833 a month. It's going to be whatever the increase is divided by the months he works.
Right, it's prorated.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if we were going to do a stipend, we could do $830 a month until further notice, or something like that.
Or
Yeah,
you
that idea.
$200 a week, and go week by week if you want. How often do you get paid? Twice a month?
Twice a month.
So $500 or $400 a pay period.
Technically, it's every 2 weeks, right, Anthony? So
Right, yeah. There's a couple of months we get paid 3 times. It's every 2 weeks. Yeah.
I like that approach better.
Yeah, I do too.
And that also doesn't mess up his pension issues, I mean, because salary goes up and then it goes down. And if he doesn't get the job, if it's just a stipend is not pensionable, right?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Well, and that'll allow him to have a real conversation. If I'm putting my hat on for him too, he wants to have a real conversation about what his desired salary could be as well. So that doesn't predate a conversation that we could have in the future if he was the right candidate.
Just so you all know, the intention was not to lock him into any salary as the choice of recreation director.
No,
with this.
But I would interpret this, Ralph, that if we passed an acting recreation director at this salary, I would also be voting in theory to pass his salary if he was the chosen person. And that's sort of why I'm balking at this a little bit.
Okay, well, I appreciate that because that wasn't my intent. So thank you for that.
So for the resolution, go ahead.
I was going to say, so can we say a $400 per pay period stipend until until there's a time when we have somebody in place?
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
It's okay with me.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
Ralph, was that the number that you were?
That's $800 a month, basically.
$800 a month, So it's a
Yeah,
little
no,
less.
I know, but yeah, you had initially said 3,000 a month before, so that's why I'm coming back to question
So
and
is that
make
not
sure.
enough? Would you rather do $500 a month? I don't know, pay period.
Folks, the final decision is up to you.
Well,
The 400, wait, just so we know, I think that there was a.
McCready, I think.
Wait, we got two people talking at once. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm going to agree with Councilmember McCready. The amount of work though is not onerous at this point, and I think the bump is of $200 a week, $400 a pay period is a reasonable one.
Right. And I believe that's exactly what Ralph was proposing. I think that there was maybe some miscommunication with a 3,000 number. That was never a monthly number, Ralph, was it? No. So there was just a miscommunication. This 400 per pay period is consistent with what was originally put into this resolution. It's just paying it on a bonus stipend basis, not as a salary adjustment.
Okay.
So Ralph, I'll ask you again, as the CFO and our administrator, from your perspective, is $400 a number that you think is reasonable for the work that he's taking on?
$400, let's see, it would be
Per pay period, I guess is what people say.
$800. I would say when things, for now, I would say yes, because they are not as what they will be. But when things do kick in, whenever that is, his time and his effort will grow exponentially, like immediately. So maybe we'd have another discussion at that point in time if we're still there. We might not be. We may have a director in place that whether it be him or anybody else before we even get a chance to kick into high gear.
So maybe you're thinking like if it's June or July and, you know, we're in panic mode,
yeah,
get the pool open and get camps going, and, you know,
Yeah.
that that may require more time, more effort. But for now, 400 a pay
Yeah.
period is okay.
And yes, I'll leave.
I mean, that's how I see it. How do you guys see it?
And we may by June have that full-time person. So
we may.
Cross that bridge when we get to it, and I think if we do our planning well and anticipation, we won't be in a panic mode. So I think we stick with our plan.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think it numerically, that's a pretty reasonable percentage-based bump as well. So
Pretty substantial, you mean?
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
okay, we good with this? Any other questions? Discussion? Motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
This is for a $400 per pay period stipend. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Ms. Zamara?
Yes.
Okay, we are now at 6C, request from hardship exemption for road moratorium for street opening at 23 Highview Avenue. Oh, I believe we have an email or a letter addressed to the mayor and council from the resident.
So this is not a resolution. We're just answering the question for him?
Right, well, we have to at some point either approve, Jack, right? Do we have to approve?
Correct.
Waiving the moratorium?
Yep. There's also a letter from John McDowell.
The letter from John recommended that we approve this particular hardship. My view is we should. The guy bought a house in town. He renovated it, what made it nicer than it was when he purchased it. He's looking to move into town. I think we give him the exemption.
Agreed.
Yeah, that house was in really bad shape, and I think by fixing it up, he really improved the neighborhood, and that serves us all. The question I had: who exactly pays for the $5,000 work, or however much work it is? I mean, I wasn't quite sure. Homeowner pay for it? We pay for it as taxpayers, or does the gas company? Who
We
pays for the
don't pay
repair?
for it.
Sorry.
The homeowner.
Okay, so, and then what's the end result? I mean, we had this moratorium in place, and now we're going to.
He has to do a patch that passes infrared inspection.
I guess aesthetically is what I'm asking. Is it going to look bad? Are we going to get complaints from the neighbors that now this street, which looks really good, it was only repaired 2.5 years ago?
5 years ago.
I thought it was 2017.
Yep. You're right, Jeff.
It was 2.5 years ago.
I think the answer is that there's
but he was wrong.
I believe that the answer is that there's a standard that has to be met for the quality of the repair, and that's what the bond is there for. They bond, we hold the bond, they do the repair. If they don't do the repair properly, we take the bond money and do the repair ourselves.
Okay.
I think one of the things, Jeff, did you and I have this conversation that, this is the second one we've had of this, that maybe when somebody's doing a conversion and they apply for the permit, somebody at that point needs to tell them about the moratorium and make them aware of it rather than they get to the whole end of the process and then they find out there's a moratorium. You know what? We talked about whether there's a step in the process that would, maybe it was Ralph I had this discussion with, but maybe we can look at how that progresses, that somewhere they get notified before they switch. It was Jeff. Okay.
I can unmute Jeff.
You want to unmute Jeff?
Jeff Price has his hand raised. I don't know if that's from now or from before.
Yeah, I think he's
Can
just.
you unmute him, Anthony?
Yep.
Unmute Jeff. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, this all comes into construction when permits are issued. And I'm trying to figure out a way to connect the dots there. You've got a construction permit on a street that is changing to a gas heat. And somebody has to know that that road was only paved a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's difficult for us to have that in our mind unless we have some kind of a sheet that is provided to us to say that these roads, A, B, C, D, E, will not be available to be dug up until certain years. And I mean, that document just doesn't exist. So I'm trying to figure out a way of creating that document. So when we do sign off on permits for that will eventually have to have the road excavated, that the applicant is aware that they have an issue and may have to come to the council.
It's all done on paper. I'm a little confused. I mean, I would think that if you have an online spreadsheet, you could have an alert that comes up to saying this road can't be worked on for another year.
Well, yeah, that's true. If that spreadsheet is input into our construction, zoning, and housing computer program, yes. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying to get put in place.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would help a lot with these kinds of issues. Just, you know, if the homeowner has enough notice, they can time their projects better.
Right. And I think, as John said in his letter, that the previous owner of the house was informed that the road was going to be paved and they wouldn't be able to do any excavation for 5 years. But unfortunately, that homeowner passed away and that information was not passed on to this new owner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think the particular circumstances around this particular exception, sounds like a scenario that we could face even in an enhanced communication environment of the future. This kind of circumstance, we would need to grant an exception. This is somebody who's taken a house, updated it, modernized it. They bought the house after the road had been paved, you know, in 2017. The guy bought the house in 2019. He's made all these improvements. You know, he's gotten rid of an environmental hazard, which is an underground oil tank. I think, you know, we should grant this exception even if it came up in the future. We just need to communicate better is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you, Tom. But I'm just concerned that now that we've had this happen more than once, that's a trend. I'm just baffled that we can give a permit for somebody who thinks they can do the work, but we're granting a permit for something that technically they're not allowed to do.
Well, I think, you know, it's not, exceptions aren't unheard of for a road opening, I don't think. And maybe Jeff, you could comment. This happens periodically. It's not like we never have these exceptions. These have happened in the past, you know. It's not like it's only happened recently, is it? Am I correct?
Right. Yeah, you're correct. And sometimes it's not through normal construction. Sometimes it's an emergency that happened. That something blew up in the house. They had a fire, and they have to do this.
I agree. Emergencies happen, but I do think that we need to perhaps have a greater sense of urgency in fixing this communication problem, because somebody who's buying a house with the intent of renovating it ought to know in advance before they buy the house what the constraints are.
I wouldn't want this person to not buy the house on the basis that we're not going to let them tear the road up. I mean, I think overall this is a benefit to our town, what this guy did.
I agree, but I just think to me, it's an ethical thing. I mean, people ought to know what they're getting into. I mean,
hey Jeff, when people buy a house here, they have to close all the permits, correct? We think we passed that last year. As part of that package, or when they come to do that, can we notify them that, you know, XYZ road, you know, you can't open it just, you know, until 2021, whatever the case may be.
Right.
That's the best way to handle it?
Yeah, and John, that's where my head was at. It was at the records closing permit that we issue. We should think that through. Where is this street? When was it last paved? put some kind of a notation on that permit that this road has got a moratorium for 5 years.
What I'm proposing is that we don't create a environment where we're scaring off people who are, doing something good in our community by saying that there's absolutely no way you can do these things, but say there's a process you have to follow. If you want to do this and communicate to them, you have to get an exception. You have to apply to the council. This is how you go about doing it, but not telling them it's impossible. That's all I'm trying to say.
And I wasn't suggesting that we say it's.
No. I knew you didn't suggest that. I just
suggesting
wanted to make sure it didn't come across that way.
Yeah, now they may want to apply for the waiver before they buy the house.
Yeah, maybe. Although I hope we're not scaring off potential investors. That's all.
Well, yeah. Well, just on that point, Tom, it's like I see your head, Zach. It's like I feel the same way because the guy put a lot of money and made the place better. We shouldn't like hold him up. But is 5 years like something just because that's where the roads last, or should it be like a 2-year moratorium and kind of sliding deposit like it was for the tree fund? You cut down trees, you got to put some money in there. Like $5,000, it's a $5,000 contribution to the road paving fund. If you're going to do it after 2 years and slides down to 0 after 5, does that make any sense at all?
I don't think that's a bad idea, but I don't know if we can legally do that, Jack.
Yeah, we probably can. I'll look into it. It strikes me as something we could do. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a good idea. But I think what we will do though is put some notation on the records closing certification about the condition of the road and when it was last paved, and make sure the new owner is aware that if he's changing from electric heat to gas heat, that this may cause an issue.
Oh yeah, if and until anything changes, I certainly would agree with that because it's transparent, give as much lead time as possible.
Right.
They make big decisions with a lot of money.
So on the specifically 6C, do we need to vote or say what we're going to do?
I think you can approve the exemption by motion in accordance with John McDowell's recommendation.
I move that we approve this exception by motion based on John McDowell's recommendation.
I'll second.
I second.
Is then all in favor?
Yeah, you can just do a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Can we also task Public Works with sort of looking into this and find the best, we get the 5-year moratorium. Maybe that's not the best approach.
We did discuss the years.
2-year hard, no exceptions, and then some kind of sliding, fee scale.
I'll put it on our Public Works agenda for next week, John.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Okay, next 6D was the Bernards Township Regional Chamber to help with the business community, and I think we dealt with that. 6E is the 271 Mine.
Actually, their letter, I don't have it in front of me, but if I remember, they asked about the signs, but they also wanted us to have a waiver of inspection fees.
We already said we don't have any that we know of, right?
I said earlier, I'm not sure exactly what fees they're talking about. We don't have any ongoing fees.
I took that to mean the kind of fees that Jeff charges for inspections and such.
Well, during this period, we're not inspecting really.
Right.
Okay, because I just don't think we should be waiving them. But if we're not doing it, that's another story.
Yeah, no, we're not doing
No,
it.
we're not.
Typically left it out of the.
No,
Yeah.
there's certainly no housing rental inspections going on, but construction are doing certain types of inspections.
Well, I think that
They don't have a business registration fee or any annual fee
Yeah.
to pay for.
We don't have a mercantile license or anything like that.
No.
I think that's what we're
No.
referring.
Yeah. Okay. 6E is the 271 Mine Brook Road subdivision. I'm not sure why that's here, Jack.
Yeah, it's premature, I think, because John Zabo is in the process of preparing a concept subdivision for your consideration. So I suggest.
Okay, yeah, we had a copy of the survey, which was good because I don't think we had seen that before. But yeah, I had requested that John Zabo, as the planner, look at the best ways to subdivide that property. So hopefully we'll get back on that so that we can get that moving as to the pieces that we want to sell.
He is
Thank
working
you.
on that as well.
Okay. Mayor's update. I have that here. What do I do with it? Too many papers. Okay. Actually, what I've been doing, obviously not going anywhere, but lots of conference calls. Ralph and Anthony and I are on the conference call with the county every day at noon, which has been very helpful. They are doing an outstanding job. It's not only good to get the updates from the prosecutor's office and the freeholders and everybody and the updates from the state, but it's also good to hear what other towns are doing and to be able to ask what other towns are doing in handling their parks or their birthday parades and those kinds of things. They also talked about, though, hoarding and price gouging. There's ways for people to report that. And if you get any complaints about that, there's a phone number to call. I also was on a webinar with the New Jersey League of Municipalities on the CARE Act and the executive orders that we had up to that point, which I believe I forwarded you all a copy of that PowerPoint because there was a lot of good information on that. I've also had conference calls with Senators Menendez and Booker talking about the IRS payments, the stimulus package payments that people should be getting starting this week. Unemployment was extended 13 weeks until July 31st for anyone who was expiring on unemployment with an extra $600 per check. And they also included self-employed and private contractors will now be eligible for unemployment. We had a White House briefing again, and then Kevin, the OEM chair there, had a mass feeding committee meeting, and they've been doing a great job on getting the food pantry up. A lot of good input, a lot of good ideas, a lot of volunteers. It's really going well. Thank you, Kevin, for all your work on that. And also, I think Christine has been making masks. She's got her little group doing face coverings and masks. So thank you for that. Oh, and I also wanted to thank Ralph for getting the flag banners up downtown. I thought that really kind of, gave it a nice spirit to the downtown.
Mayor, I have a question about the food pantry. If there's people that want to participate or want to donate food and who do they call to donate more?
If they want to donate food, they can just drop it off Monday to Thursday, 9 to 12, and Monday and Tuesday also 3 to 6. So you drive up, they'll take it out of the car and it's gone.
St. Bernard's Church is?
Yes, at the parish house on St. Bernard's Church. If they want to donate money, they have checks going to the community fund, which was originally started by all the churches in town, and St. Bernard's manages it, but it's used for short-term helping people. They need a month's rent. They need it's kind of one-time gifts, and they'll use that as well for the food bank. And Camino de Fe is also helping with that, although they do the greater Somerset Hills, not just Bernardsville. So they're, I think it's all the information is on the police department webpage. So if you go to bernardsvillepd.org, they have all the contact information for the food bank on there.
Thank you.
What else? We have a weekly call with the governor's office, so we get updates from them. So just a lot of conference calls. But other than that, I think that's it for me. We did have correspondence for the bike challenge, the what was that, September 12th? And I don't think we don't have to do anything on that, do we? They're just notifying us.
Yeah, they're working with the police department to work out all the details. They're just kind of notifying us that they've requested that, and they have to provide us insurance and a hold harmless agreement. But they just have to work out the details with the police, but we don't need to approve anything.
Okay. Unfinished business. Do we have anything that we haven't finished? Any new business? None? Okay.
Well, actually, this is something I was talking with Chad about, but
Sorry, I was on mute. I was on mute. I was talking and no one could hear me.
do we have a task force? Do we have a plan for when, in fact,
Yeah.
things start to reopen on how we're going to approach it and how we're going to optimize the reopening of businesses and such?
I'm sure that'll be directed, kind of coming down from the state to the county to the municipalities. I don't think we can, some of those decisions, I don't think we'll get to do on our own, or it'll go through OEM more than likely.
But I think there's a couple of important things that we could start thinking about. So first, I know that as we've gone through this new reality, there's been some rockiness and various committees meeting. I think we need to double down our efforts, especially where committees are dealing with important pieces of work to keep those pieces moving. And I know, I was talking to Gina as well. The rec committee is already starting to discuss what new realities could mean for recreation in the circumstance of an opening. So I guess what I'm saying is I think we should all urge committees that we're working on to continue to move businesses as necessary and prioritize it to hopefully, get to a new normal here sometime soon.
Anthony, do you know what committees are still meeting and just having online meetings or not?
As far as I know, just about all of them. I think housing has not met and canceled, but I think all the other ones have met at least once.
Yes.
Through telephone or Zoom. So yeah, I think most of them are just about all of them are meeting.
Yeah, I know housing wasn't meeting just because there's no inspections, so there's kind of nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
But environmental and all the other.
Environmental, Board of Health, I know has met. I think they're meeting tomorrow. Library, I believe, has met. Shapesley, I think, has met as well. I think.
Planning has met virtually. Our last meeting, weren't able to turn it on, but we're working on some important, on two important pieces, the sign ordinance as well as the new zoning ordinance.
How about Board of Adjustment? Are they meeting?
Yes, they met on Monday.
Okay.
Open Space, I don't believe I've heard from them. I don't think Open Space has had a meeting since this whole thing happened, like in March.
Yeah, Mary Jane, I think there's an important update for personnel. If I could just have 10 seconds for that.
For personnel, yeah.
Yeah. So just because everyone isn't aware, so the search for the new rec director, we had, I want to say 19 applications for the posting. On Thursday, we narrowed the 19 applicants down to a short list, of which both Ralph and Anthony are going to do a first round of interviews and bring back a number that ranges between 3 and 5 final candidates for a secondary round of reviews that'll involve several council members. So that position is moving forward, and we're starting to narrow things down.
Good. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention, I was also on the county census committee meeting the other morning, and they have issued, and I'll get you all copies, they've backed up a lot of the dates on the census because obviously they're not going to be knocking on doors in May, which is what would have been the next, I think the online notices, the first letter, and then there's another letter, and then they mail the application home, and then the next step was to knock on doors. So they're realigning the dates and some of the ways. They're going to do a lot more online type of promotion, less personal, because they had asked us to include census information in all our public events, and now we're not having public events. So they're looking at redoing their whole promotion program. So I will send you the information on the new schedule and how that's progressing.
Do we know what percent of Bernardsville residents have actually, or households have actually already filled out the census?
Actually, we're pretty high. You can map it on their website, and I looked at the map and I forget what it was. Somerset County, I believe, was second in the list of having returns coming in. So
Yeah, something like 45, 46% or something like that.
yeah, we had a pretty good response. It was above the average, whatever the state average is. We were above the average, but there's still, you know, quite a ways to go in getting those done. Anybody else? Okay, so Anthony, I'm not sure how when we go into closed session, are we going to ask people to leave? Or are we going to close and reopen? I'm not sure how we want to do that.
Last time we asked people to leave, and then if anyone was in there who was not supposed to be in closed session, I just removed them from the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we've just asked people to leave. Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion for executive session?
I'll move the executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay, I'm assuming no one's opposed. So we will go into executive. So if you're a member of the public, please sign out, and thank you for coming.
All right, good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night, Jeff.
Good night.
Good night, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
No problem.